I found a letter in my husband's coat that said, "Thanks for the best trip, my love. I sold the house that same afternoon." He came back smiling, but his keys didn't work, and his name was no longer on the deed. Have you ever had that moment when your entire reality shatters in an instant? Hi there. I'm Rebecca, 32, a real estate attorney from Denver. I specialize in property law and complicated closings. Ironic considering what I'm about to tell you. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. I was doing laundry while my husband Mark was at work. Air quotes very much intended. As I emptied his coat pockets before dry cleaning, I found it. A small lavender envelope with elegant handwriting. The scent of unfamiliar perfume hit me before I even opened it. Thanks for the best trip, my love. Can't wait for our next adventure when you're finally free. Always yours, C. 12 years of marriage. Gone in 12 seconds of reading. The letter was dated 3 days ago, when Mark was supposedly at a consulting conference in Chicago. A conference I'd helped him pack for. A conference I'd driven him to the airport for at 5 a.m. A conference that apparently involved someone named C who wore lavender perfume and had handwriting that looked like it belonged in a calligraphy exhibit. I sat on our bedroom floor for exactly 17 minutes. I know because I watched the digital clock on our nightstand change, minute by minute, as my brain tried to process what was happening. Then something clicked inside me. You see, when you practice property law for 10 years, you learn a few things about quick transactions and loopholes. You also make connections with people who can expedite paperwork when needed. I stood up, smoothed my pants, and made 3 phone calls. First, to my colleague at the firm who owed me a massive favor after I covered his 2-week vacation last summer when his wife had complications with their twins. Second, to my broker friend Elaine who specialized in quick sales. Third, to a locksmith I'd helped when his ex-wife tried to claim half his business in a divorce, a case I won for him 2 years ago. By noon, I had the house listed significantly below market value, but with a contingency. Closing had to happen same day, cash offer only. In this market, for a 4-bedroom craftsman in Cherry Creek with updated everything, it was like announcing a Rolex fire sale. By 2 p.m., we had 7 offers. By 3 p.m., I'd accepted one from a tech executive who'd just relocated from California and could wire the funds immediately. By 4 p.m., I was signing paperwork in my office downtown, using my power of attorney that Mark had signed years ago when he thought I needed it for tax purposes. See, here's something most people don't know about marriage and property. With the right paperwork in place, one spouse can sometimes sell jointly owned property without the other's immediate signature, especially if you have the right connections and know exactly which forms need to be prioritized in processing. The locksmith arrived at 5:30 p.m. I watched him change every lock while I directed the moving company I'd hired to pack only my personal belongings. My clothes, my books, my grandmother's china, my separate bank statements and financial records, my law degree and bar certification, photos of my parents and sister. I left his golf clubs, his pretentious vinyl collection, his designer suits, the furniture we'd picked together, the wedding album, and I left a copy of the house deed, the new one, showing the new owners' names, along with the lavender note on the kitchen counter, held down by my wedding ring. Then I checked into the Four Seasons downtown, ordered room service, and drank an entire bottle of champagne while I watched the sun set over the mountains from the 32nd floor. Mark's flight was scheduled to land at 9:45 p.m. I imagined him taking an Uber home, suitcase in tow, maybe stopping to pick up flowers as a token of fake affection or guilt. At 10:37 p.m., my phone started ringing. I watched his name flash across my screen 7 times before he switched to text messages. "What the hell, Becca? There are people in our house. My key doesn't work. Where are you? Call me. Who sold our house? Is this some kind of joke?" I turned my phone off, took a long bath in the hotel's marble tub, and slept better than I had in years. Morning brought 57 missed calls, 29 voicemails, and a string of increasingly desperate texts. I listened to exactly one voicemail, where Mark was alternating between sobbing and yelling about how I couldn't legally do this. Oh, but I could. And I did. You see, 6 months ago, I'd found a strange text on Mark's phone. He'd explained it away, called me paranoid, made me feel crazy for questioning him. I'd apologized. I'd tried harder to be a better wife. 3 months ago, I noticed the business trips increasing in frequency, the late nights at the office, the sudden passion for fitness that had him at the gym for hours. I'd ignored the signs because I wanted to believe in us, but I'd quietly begun preparing, documenting our assets, updating my power of attorney, making sure my name was positioned strategically on accounts and deeds, not because I planned to use it, but because 10 years as a property attorney teaches you to protect yourself. The lavender note wasn't the beginning. It was just the final confirmation. By noon the next day, I'd transferred my half of our joint accounts into my private account. I'd contacted my firm to take emergency leave, and I'd sent a single text to Mark. I found the letter. The house is sold. Your things are in storage unit number 247 at Safekeep on Morrison Road. The code is our anniversary date, if you can remember it. Don't contact me again except through my attorney. His response was immediate. You can't do this. This isn't legal. I'll sue you. Poor Mark. Always underestimating me. Always assuming I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I blocked his number and emailed my colleague Sandra to take him on as a client if he called the firm. Conflict of interest, I explained professionally. I'll be taking some time off. That afternoon, as I sat in my hotel room looking at apartment listings, my phone rang with an unknown number. It was her, C. Is this Rebecca? The voice was younger than I expected. Uncertain. Yes. I'm Cassandra. I think we need to talk. I laughed for what felt like the first time in months. No, Cassandra, we really don't. But you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You had the best trip with my husband. You're waiting for him to be finally free. And now you're calling because he's panicking and needs someone to fix the mess he's made. I'm not that someone anymore. But enjoy the empty storage unit and whatever lies he's telling you. He's your problem now. I hung up and ordered another bottle of champagne. What I didn't tell Cassandra was that the storage unit contained more than just Mark's designer suits and vinyl collection. It also contained carefully organized financial records, credit card statements showing hotel rooms and restaurants in San Diego when he was supposedly in Chicago, receipts for jewelry I'd never received, screenshots of text messages I'd managed to recover, and copies of transactions from our joint account to an unknown account that I'd traced to a rental property in Aspen I'd never known about. Mark wasn't just a cheater. He was careless. And being careless around a property attorney with trust issues is a particularly stupid form of self-destruction. I sipped my champagne and opened my laptop. Phase 1 was complete. The house was gone. I was financially secure. Mark was scrambling. Phase 2 would require more planning, more patience. But I had time. And as I watched the sunset over Denver for the second night, I realized something unexpected. Beneath the anger and betrayal, I felt light, unburdened, free. The locksmith had changed more than just the doors to our house. He'd helped me lock Mark out of my life, and I had no intention of ever giving him a new key. The hotel became my sanctuary for exactly 2 weeks. Every morning, I'd wake up to floor-to-ceiling views of the mountains, order room service, and plan my next steps with methodical precision. There's something empowering about luxury when you're dismantling your old life. Mark's attempts at contact became increasingly desperate. After I blocked his number, he created new email addresses, all promptly filtered to a folder I named Evidence. He sent flowers to my office, which my assistant returned with a polite but firm note. He even tried to reach me through my younger sister, Olivia, who called me laughing. He showed up at my apartment looking like a lost puppy, she said. I claimed he had no idea why you overreacted to some innocent correspondence from a work colleague. And what did you tell him? I asked, smiling for the first time that day. I told him that if he ever showed up at my door again, I'd post the photos you sent me of that letter on every social media platform I have. Then I reminded him that I work in digital marketing and know exactly how to make things go viral. God, I love my sister. On day 15 of my hotel stay, I found the perfect apartment, a sleek, modern one-bedroom in Lodo with industrial finishes and a rooftop deck. I paid 6 months in advance, hired a security company to install a state-of-the-art system, and moved in with only what I'd taken from the house plus a few carefully selected new pieces. No trace of Mark, no memories, no shared history on the walls. The day after I moved in, I finally returned to my firm. My managing partner David called me into his office immediately. "Rebecca," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his massive desk. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I replied, sitting with my back straight. "Thank you for approving my emergency leave." He leaned forward, concern etched on his face. "Your husband has called the office 17 times. He showed up in person twice. Security had to escort him out last Thursday." I nodded, unsurprised. "I apologize for any disruption." "Don't apologize." David's expression hardened. Sandra filled me in on the basics. We flagged him as a security risk and instructed reception not to allow him in the building. I felt a wave of gratitude. Law firms can be cutthroat, but mine had always valued loyalty. There's something else, David continued. He's retained Johnston and Mercer. Brad Johnston called me personally, making noise about illegal property transfer and at emotional distress. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Brad Johnston was a mid-tier divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics and minimal preparation. And he was going up against me, a property law specialist with a pristine record and the full resources of one of Denver's top firms. Let me guess, I said. They're demanding the proceeds from the house sale and claiming I had no right to conduct the transaction. David nodded. Among other things, they're threatening to sue both you personally and potentially the firm if we represent you. And your position? David's face broke into a rare smile. Rebecca, you've brought in over $4 million in billable hours over the past 3 years. You've never lost a case. The partners took a vote this morning. We're countersuing for harassment and filing a formal complaint with the Bar Association about Johnston's threats. Relief washed over me. I wouldn't have to fight alone. Take all the time you need, David continued. But when you're ready, your office is waiting. And Rebecca? Whatever you need, resources, associates, paralegals, just ask. I left David's office and walked to my own, nodding at colleagues who offered sympathetic smiles. Word traveled fast in law firms. I closed my door, sat at my desk, and pulled out a leather-bound notebook. It was time for phase 2. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Please. There's more you don't know. I never meant to hurt you. See, Cassandra again. Her persistence was almost admirable. I hesitated, then saved the number. Not to respond, but because every contact, every attempt, was evidence. And I was building a case. The next morning, I met with my personal financial advisor, Teresa, a formidable woman in her 60s who'd survived 3 market crashes and had a particular talent for finding hidden assets. He's moving money, she said without preamble, sliding a folder across her desk. Since you transferred your half of the joint accounts, he's been systematically liquidating investments and transferring funds. I opened the folder. Teresa had compiled a detailed report showing unusual activity across multiple accounts. Some I recognized, others I didn't. The rental property in Aspen? Teresa nodded. Listed for sale 3 days ago, significantly under market value. Quick cash sale, just like what you did with the house. He's copying my playbook, I murmured. Poorly, Teresa replied with a slight smile. He's making mistakes, leaving paper trails, and he doesn't know what we know. I looked up. Which is? There's another property, a condo in San Diego purchased 18 months ago through an LLC. The LLC's registered agent is a C. Winters. Cassandra Winters. The pieces clicked into place. The trips to Chicago, that were actually San Diego. The money flowing into the unknown account. Mark hadn't just been having an affair, he'd been building a parallel life. The condo was purchased for $1.2 million, Teresa continued, with a down payment of $300,000 from an account we've traced back to your joint investment portfolio. The monthly payments also come from redirected funds that should have been going into your shared retirement accounts. I felt a cold fury replacing the hurt. This wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. What do you recommend? I asked, my voice steady. Teresa leaned back in her chair. Legally, we freeze everything immediately. File for divorce citing financial fraud as well as infidelity. Demand a full forensic accounting of all accounts for the past 5 years. And less legally? A gleam appeared in Teresa's eye. We could let him keep digging his grave for another week or 2. Document everything. Let him think he's getting away with it. Then close the trap when he's most vulnerable. I considered this. How vulnerable are my remaining assets? I've already moved everything solely in your name to new accounts he can't access. The only exposure is to the funds he's already diverted. I nodded slowly. Let's give him enough rope to hang himself. As I left Teresa's office, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Mark had filed his initial divorce petition, claiming I had abandoned the marriage, illegally sold joint property, and caused him severe emotional and financial distress. The document was riddled with factual errors and poorly constructed legal arguments, exactly what I'd expect from Brad Johnston. But the final paragraph caught my attention. Furthermore, the respondent's reckless and vindictive actions have jeopardized petitioners' business relationships and standing in the community, potentially costing him a partnership opportunity worth an estimated $2.3 million. Partnership opportunity? Mark was a mid-level marketing manager at a regional firm. There was no partnership track, no opportunity worth millions. Unless I pulled over and called David. The case Mark mentioned he was working on for Apex Solutions, I said when he answered. Do you know what it was? I heard David shuffling papers. Give me a second. Yes, it was a property development deal. Mixed-use complex in the River North District. Why? Who's the developer? More shuffling. Looks like Winter Ridge Partners. Winter. As in winters, as in sea. Winters. David, I need a background check on a Cassandra Winters, likely connected to Winter Ridge Partners, and I need everything we have on the Apex Winter Ridge deal. Consider it done, David replied. But Rebecca, what's this about? I gripped the steering wheel tightly. I think my husband isn't just having an affair. I think he's been funneling insider information to a developer for a major deal, possibly using our joint assets to invest in it. The silence on the other end was telling. If I'm right, I continued, this isn't just about my divorce anymore. It's about securities fraud, misappropriation of funds, possibly even racketeering. Come to the office, David said, his voice grave. Bring everything you have. We'll set up in the conference room. 3 hours later, I sat surrounded by 5 of the firm's top attorneys as we pieced together what appeared to be a sophisticated scheme. Mark had been passing confidential information from his company to Cassandra Winters, a rising developer who specialized in gentrifying emerging neighborhoods. They'd been using my joint funds with Mark to finance property purchases ahead of public development announcements, then flipping them for massive profits. The SEC would be very interested in this, murmured Helen, our securities specialist. This is textbook insider trading. I stared at the whiteboard where we'd mapped out the connections. And the Aspen property, the San Diego condo, purchased with profits from earlier schemes, confirmed Teresa, who had joined us. But disguised as legitimate investments or, in the case of San Diego, hidden completely from your knowledge. I sat back, processing everything. So my husband and his girlfriend haven't just been betraying me emotionally. They've been using my money to fund an illegal real estate scheme. Money that you earned, David pointed out. Your salary has been the primary household income for the past 5 years. A thought struck me. The letter I found, it mentioned, when you're finally free. That couldn't just be about our marriage? Helen nodded grimly. The Apex Winter Ridge deal is set to close next month. It's worth millions. If they pull it off. They disappear with the money. I finished. Start over somewhere else. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. What do you want to do? David asked finally. I looked at the evidence spread before me. Financial records, property deeds, communications, the timeline we'd constructed. A complete picture of betrayal more calculated than I'd imagined. We go to the SEC, I said firmly, and the FBI. But not yet. David raised an eyebrow. Why wait? I stood up and walked to the whiteboard, picking up a marker. Because right now, we have evidence of the scheme, but not all the players. Mark and Cassandra aren't sophisticated enough to pull this off alone. There must be others involved, possibly at Apex, possibly at the banks financing these deals. I drew a circle around Mark's name. And right now, Mark thinks he's winning. He thinks I'm just an angry wife who impulsively sold our house. He has no idea what I've uncovered or what's coming. I turned to face the room. Let's let them proceed with the Apex deal. Monitor every transaction, identify every co-conspirator, document everything. And then? Teresa asked. I capped the marker. And then we bring the whole thing crashing down around them. As the meeting adjourned, my phone buzzed with a text. Fine. You won't talk? I'm coming to your office tomorrow. We finish this face-to-face. I showed the message to David, who immediately called security to arrange additional measures. But as I walked to my car that evening, I felt strangely calm. Mark thought he was coming to intimidate me into submission. He had no idea he was walking into the trap I'd spent weeks setting. Let him come. Let him rage and threaten and try to make me feel small again. This time, I'd be ready. And this time, I wouldn't be the one losing everything. I arrived at the office early the next morning, wearing my power suit, a charcoal gray Armani with subtle pinstripes and red-soled Louboutins that added 3 inches to my height, battle armor for what was coming. Security had been briefed. A plainclothes officer was positioned near reception. Meeting room B, the one with recording capabilities, was reserved all day. Everything was in place. When my assistant Jeremy buzzed to say Mark had arrived, I took 3 deep breaths and nodded to Helen and David, who were positioned in the adjacent observation room. "Send him in," I said calmly. Mark burst through the door looking disheveled in a way I'd never seen before. His usually perfect hair was uncombed, his expensive shirt wrinkled. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Rebecca," he said, stopping short when he saw me sitting composed at the head of the conference table. He'd clearly expected to find me in my office, to have the upper hand in a private confrontation. "Mark," I replied coolly. "Please, sit down." Confusion flickered across his face. This wasn't the script he'd prepared for. "I don't want to sit down," he snapped. "I want to know what the hell you think you're doing. You sold our house. You emptied our accounts. You're ruining my life over some misunderstanding?" I raised an eyebrow. "Misunderstanding? Is that what we're calling it? That letter, it wasn't what you think. Cassandra is a business associate. The trip was professional. You've blown everything completely out of proportion." I almost admired his commitment to the lie. "Almost? A business associate?" I repeated. "Who calls you my love and can't wait until you're finally free? Who owns a condo in San Diego purchased with $300,000 of our joint savings? Who's been receiving regular transfers from our investment accounts for the past 18 months? The color drained from his face. "You've been spying on me?" "No, Mark. I've been doing exactly what any competent attorney would do, following the money. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? That I'd be so blindly trusting that you could steal from me for years, and I'd never catch on?" He collapsed into a chair, his bravado evaporating. "You don't understand. It's complicated." "Then explain it to me," I said, folding my hands on the table. "Explain Winter Ridge Partners. Explain the Apex deal. Explain the insider trading." His head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. "What are you talking about? Don't insult my intelligence," I said quietly. "We've traced everything. The property purchases ahead of development announcements, the shell companies, the diverted funds, all of it." Mark's face went through a rapid sequence of emotions: shock, fear, calculation, and finally, a strange sort of relief. "You know what?" he said, leaning back with a hollow laugh. "Fine, you're so smart, you figured it all out. Congratulations. But you're too late." "Too late for what?" He leaned forward, something ugly flickering in his eyes. "The Apex deal closes in 3 days. By the end of the week, I'll have my share of the profits, and I'll be gone. You can have your divorce. You can have whatever's left. Cass and I will be starting over somewhere you'll never find us." I kept my expression neutral, though internally I was cataloging every word for the recording. "And how much is your share, exactly?" A smug smile spread across his face. $4.2 million after the final flip, tax-free, since it's all being routed through a very creative structure in the Caymans. "Impressive," I said mildly. "And your partners in this creative structure? They're all on board with your exit strategy." Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps. "What do you mean?" I shrugged. "Just wondering if Lyndon at Apex knows you're planning to disappear with your girlfriend after the deal closes. Or if Jason at First National Bank is aware that his loan approvals were based on fraudulent applications. Or if—" "Stop!" Mark hissed, glancing nervously at the door. "Those names. How do you know those names?" I smiled thinly. "Like I said, we've traced everything." "We?" His eyes narrowed. "Who's we?" "My firm, the forensic accountants, and, as of tomorrow morning, the SEC and FBI Financial Crimes Division." The blood drained from his face. "You're bluffing." I reached into the folder beside me and slid across a document. A meeting confirmation from the FBI field office for 9 a.m. the next day. Mark stared at it, his hands trembling slightly. "You can't do this. You'll go down too. All our joint accounts, you benefited from this money too." "Did I?" I asked calmly. "I think the records will show I never touched a penny of the illegally obtained funds. In fact, I think they'll show I was kept completely in the dark about these transactions. And who would be more credible? The property attorney with an unblemished record who initiated the investigation when she discovered the fraud, or the unfaithful husband caught stealing from his own wife to fund his affair with his co-conspirator?" For the first time, I saw real fear in Mark's eyes. Not just the panic of a man caught, but the dawning realization that he'd severely miscalculated. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I leaned forward. Originally, I wanted my dignity back. I wanted you to feel a fraction of the pain and humiliation you caused me. That's why I sold the house. A quick, clean break on my terms. I stood up and walked slowly around the table. But now I want justice. Not just for me, but for every investor you've defrauded, every company you've stolen from, every ethical line you've crossed. Mark jumped to his feet. You self-righteous bitch. You think you're so perfect, so above it all. You never appreciated what I sacrificed for us. The life I was trying to build. A life built on lies and theft isn't a life, Mark. It's a house of cards, and it's collapsing as we speak. His face contorted with rage. He stepped toward me, fists clenched. You will not ruin this for me. I've worked too hard. Risked too much. Before he could take another step, the door opened. The security officer entered, followed by David. Is everything all right in here, Ms. Andrews? The officer asked, his hand resting casually near his holster. Mark froze, suddenly aware of his surroundings again. Everything's fine, officer, I said calmly. My soon-to-be ex-husband was just leaving. David stepped forward. I'll escort you out, Mr. Andrews. And I should inform you that any further attempts to contact Ms. Andrews, either here or at her residence, will result in a restraining order. Your lawyer has already been advised. Mark looked from David to me, then to the security officer. The fight seemed to drain out of him all at once. This isn't over, he said, but the words lacked conviction. Actually, Mark, I replied, it is. After they left, I sat back down, my hands finally allowing themselves to shake. Helen entered from the observation room, a tablet in hand. We got it all, she confirmed. Every admission, every threat. It's already been forwarded to our contacts at the SEC. I nodded, a strange numbness settling over me. What happens now? Helen sat beside me. Now, we move fast. The meeting with the FBI is still on for tomorrow, but given what he just admitted about the deal closing in 3 days, we should notify them immediately. Will they have enough to act? I asked. With the financial trail we've documented and his recorded confession? Absolutely. They'll likely move to freeze all associated accounts and may well arrest several people before the deal can close. I thought about Cassandra, waiting for her payday. About the Apex executives who might or might not be aware of the fraud happening under their noses. About the complex web of lies Mark had constructed while sleeping beside me each night. Do it, I said firmly. Call them now. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of activity. FBI agents interviewed me for 4 hours, combing through every document we'd compiled. The SEC launched a formal investigation. By evening, news had broken of irregularities in the Apex Winter Ridge deal, causing trading of both companies' stock to be temporarily halted. I stayed in a hotel again that night, this time with a security detail provided by my firm. Not because I feared Mark directly, but because we couldn't predict how any of the other players in the scheme might react once they realized the game was up. At 6:17 a.m., my phone rang. It was David. They've made arrests, he said without preamble. Mark, Cassandra Winters, 2 executives at Apex and a loan officer at First National. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. All of them? Already? The evidence was overwhelming. Rebecca. And once they started pulling on threads, the whole thing unraveled quickly. Apparently, several co-conspirators were eager to cut deals. Mark? I asked, not sure what answer I was hoping for. David hesitated. He's not cooperating, at least not yet. His lawyer advised against it. Still using Johnston? No. He's called in Michaels from the criminal defense team at Harrington. Heavy hitter, but even he may not be able to make a dent in the case they're building. I thanked David and hung up, then sat in the dim hotel room as dawn broke over the city. It felt surreal. The man I'd loved, trusted, built a life with, now sitting in a jail cell facing federal charges. Later that morning, as I sat in the FBI field office providing additional details, an agent handed me a note. Turn on financial news. We paused the interview to switch on the television mounted in the corner. A somber anchor was mid-sentence. Largest real estate fraud scheme uncovered in the state in a decade. 6 arrests have been made in connection with the Winter Ridge Partners investigation, with authorities suggesting more may follow. The scheme allegedly involved insider information about upcoming development projects, fraudulent loan applications, and the misappropriation of investor funds. The screen showed photos of those arrested. Mark's mugshot, disheveled, hollow-eyed, appeared beside Cassandra's. She was younger than I'd imagined, perhaps early 30s, with the polished look of someone who spent considerable time and money on her appearance. According to sources close to the investigation, the anchor continued, the scheme began to unravel when the wife of one of the central figures discovered financial irregularities and brought them to the attention of authorities. I felt the eyes of everyone in the room turn toward me. The agent in charge, a no-nonsense woman named Garcia, clicked off the TV. "Well," she said with a hint of admiration, "you've certainly made our job easier, Ms. Andrews." 3 days later, I returned to my apartment after another grueling session with federal prosecutors. The case was expanding beyond anything I'd anticipated. What had begun as an investigation into Mark and Cassandra had revealed connections to 3 other development deals across the state, involving dozens of co-conspirators. As I kicked off my shoes and poured a glass of wine, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Ms. Andrews!" A formal, each unfamiliar voice asked when I answered. "Yes." "This is Warden Phillips from the Downtown Detention Center. I'm calling because you're listed as the emergency contact for Mark Andrews." My heart skipped. "What's happened?" "Nothing serious, ma'am. Mr. Andrews has requested a visit from you." Normally, we wouldn't facilitate such requests, but given the high-profile nature of the case and some specific information Mr. Andrews claims to have, the federal prosecutor suggested we reach out. I closed my eyes, weighing my options. What kind of information? I'm not at liberty to say, ma'am, but the prosecutor seemed to think it might be of interest to you personally. After a moment's hesitation, I agreed to come the following morning. Sleep eluded me that night. What could Mark possibly have to say that would interest me now? Was this another manipulation? A desperate attempt to garner sympathy? Or did he genuinely have information that might matter? The detention center was cold and sterile, the visiting room separated by thick glass partitions. I sat rigidly on an uncomfortable metal stool, waiting as a guard brought Mark in. He looked terrible. Jail jumpsuit hanging loosely on his frame, dark shadows under his eyes, hair limp. But what struck me most was his expression when he saw me. Not anger or resentment, but something like relief. He picked up the phone on his side of the partition. I did the same. "Rebecca," he said, his voice raspy. "Thank you for coming." The prosecutor suggested it was important. I replied neutrally. He nodded, glancing nervously at the guard standing nearby. "They're offering me a deal. And 15 years instead of 30 if I give them everyone involved. Every account, every transaction, names they don't even know to look for yet." I kept my expression impassive. "I'm not your lawyer, Mark. I can't advise you on this." "I know," he said quickly. "That's not why I asked you to come." He leaned closer to the glass. "There's a storage unit, different from the one where I put my things from the house. It's in Boulder, under the name Marcus Anderton." My pulse quickened. "What's in it?" "Documentation, hard drives. Things Cassandra doesn't know I kept. Insurance, I guess you could call it." He pushed a piece of paper against the glass with a unit number and access code written on it. "Why are you telling me this?" He looked down, something like shame crossing his features. "Because you deserve to know the truth, all of it. Not just about the scheme, but about us." "What truth, Mark?" "That you lied to me for years. That you stole from me. That you were planning to disappear with your girlfriend and millions in stolen money." He flinched. "Yes, all of that. But also, why?" I laughed bitterly. "I think I know why. Greed. Lust. The usual suspects." Mark shook his head. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. When it started, it was just a one-time thing. Inside information about a development, a chance to make a quick profit. Then it snowballed. And Cassandra? Was she a one-time thing too?" Pain flashed across his face. "I met her 3 years ago at an industry event. She was ambitious, connected. She saw potential in me that no one else had. Potential as a fraudster," I said coldly. "As someone who could help navigate her through certain obstacles. Someone with access to capital through his successful wife." The casual admission that he'd targeted our joint funds stung more than I expected. "So you used me, for years?" "Yes," he admitted quietly. "But it's more complicated than that. I did love you, Rebecca. Still do, in my way." I felt a surge of anger. Don't you dare sit there in your jumpsuit and talk about love after what you've done." I know it doesn't change anything, he said, looking down, but I wanted you to have the complete picture before I take the deal. The storage unit has everything, including information about accounts you don't know about yet. Accounts in your name. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Cassandra was thorough. She created accounts, credit lines, even shell companies with your information, your social security number, your signature, forged, obviously. Some are connected to legitimate projects, others to the fraudulent ones. Horror washed over me as I understood the implications. You're saying I could be implicated, that there's evidence out there that makes it look like I was involved. He nodded grimly. The prosecutors don't have it yet. No one does except me, and now you. But when I give them everything as part of my deal, it will all come out. You'll be investigated, possibly charged unless I have proof that it was all fraud, I finished. Proof that's in this storage unit. Yes. Access it tonight. Take what you need to protect yourself. Then let the FBI find it as part of my cooperation. I studied his face, searching for deception. Why would you do this? Why warn me? For the first time, Mark's carefully constructed facade crumbled entirely. His eyes welled with tears. Because I've destroyed enough, he whispered. And whatever else I am, I don't want to be the man who sent his wife to prison for crimes she knew nothing about. That night, I drove to Boulder with David and a private investigator he trusted. The storage unit was in a nondescript facility off the highway. The code worked exactly as Mark had said it would. Inside, we found 6 banker's boxes meticulously labeled and organized. Tax returns with my forged signature. Loan applications. Company registrations. Bank statements for accounts I'd never opened. And a laptop containing emails, spreadsheets, and recordings of conversations between Mark, Cassandra, and others. Clear evidence of the forgery and fraud perpetrated in my name. My God, David murmured as we photographed and documented everything. He wasn't exaggerating. They set you up as the fall guy if anything went wrong. The private investigator whistled low. Sophisticated work, professional-grade forgeries. They spent serious money on this backstop. I sat on a folding chair, surrounded by paper evidence of yet another betrayal. He was going to run with her and leave me holding the bag. If they'd ever been caught, all signs would have pointed to me as the mastermind. David placed a hand on my shoulder. But they didn't get away with it. And now we have everything we need to protect you completely. The next morning, I called the prosecutor assigned to Mark's case, explaining what we'd found. She arranged for FBI agents to meet us at the storage unit, where they seized everything as evidence. This changes the complexion of the case significantly, she told me after reviewing the materials. Mr. Andrews clearly prepared this unit as leverage against his co-conspirators. The fact that he directed us to it demonstrates meaningful cooperation. Will his sentence be reduced further? I asked, surprised to find I cared about the answer. Possibly. But more importantly for you, this removes any cloud of suspicion that might have formed once we discovered these accounts in your name. You've been proactive, transparent, and cooperative throughout. No one looking at this evidence could possibly conclude you were involved. As we left the federal building, I felt a weight lifting. The worst was over. The truth was out. Justice, messy and imperfect as it might be, was being served. That evening, as I sat on my apartment's balcony watching the sunset, my phone buzzed with a text message. It's done. Signed the deal today. Trial avoided. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to David. It was time for phase 3, rebuilding. Not just my personal life, but my professional future as well. The scandal had made national news, with my role as whistleblower prominently featured. I'd received calls from other firms, offers for book deals, even interest from a producer about rights to my story. But what I wanted most was simpler. Peace. Control over my own life again. And perhaps, eventually, the capacity to trust. As night fell over Denver, I made a list of priorities for the coming months. 1. Finalize divorce, expedited by Mark's guilty plea. 2. Secure all financial accounts and credit. 3. Consider David's offer of partnership at the firm. 4. Look for a permanent home to replace the one I'd sold. 5. Take that trip to Greece I'd always dreamed of. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Olivia. Saw the news about Mark taking a plea deal. You doing okay? I typed back, better than okay. For the first time in months, I feel free. And I realized with some surprise that it was true. 6 months passed with remarkable speed. Mark's sentencing hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday in early spring, 12 years with possibility of parole after 8I, significantly reduced from the 30 he had initially faced. The prosecutors cited his extensive cooperation that had led to 17 additional arrests across 3 states, the recovery of over $30 million in fraudulent proceeds, and the unraveling of what one federal judge called one of the most sophisticated real estate fraud schemes in recent memory. I decided not to attend. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to see. Instead, I spent that day closing on my new home, a modern loft in a historic building downtown with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with light. It cost exactly half what our old house had sold for, leaving me with a healthy investment fund managed by Teresa. The divorce had finalized 3 months earlier, processed with unusual speed given Mark's incarceration and his willingness to sign whatever was put in front of him. I took back my maiden name, Miller, and watched as the court officially severed the last legal ties between us. Professionally, things had moved even faster. 2 weeks after Mark's plea deal, David and the other partners had called me into the conference room where everything had begun. This time, instead of evidence boxes and forensic accountants, there was champagne and a formal offer letter. "We're creating a new division," David explained. "Fraud detection and financial forensics for real estate transactions. Given your unique experience and exceptional handling of the Winter Ridge case, we'd like you to lead it." The partnership offer came with a substantial salary increase, a corner office, and the freedom to build my own team. I accepted on the spot. By month 4, I had hired 6 specialists and secured contracts with 2 major developers who wanted to ensure their projects were protected from the kind of scheme Mark and Cassandra had orchestrated. By month 5, we had expanded to 15 staff and opened a satellite office in Phoenix. On this particular evening, exactly 6 months after Mark's guilty plea, I sat in my new living room reviewing applications for another 3 positions we needed to fill. The firm's fraud division had become its fastest-growing department, with clients calling daily as the Winter Ridge case continued to make headlines. My phone rang. Olivia. "Hey, sis," I answered, setting aside the files. "What's up?" "Just checking in. Today's the 6-month mark. You know, leave it to my sister to keep track." "I know. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." "Good, because I'm outside your building with Thai food and wine. Buzz me up." I laughed and pressed the intercom button to let her in. 2 minutes later, she breezed through my door with bags of food and a determined expression. "Don't give me that look," she said, unpacking containers on my kitchen counter. "I know you. 6-month anniversaries of trauma are sneaky. They creep up on you when you least expect them." "Is that your professional opinion as a digital marketing executive?" I teased, grabbing plates from the cabinet. "It's my professional opinion as your sister who's known you for 32 years, she retorted, uncorking the wine. "You process things on a delay, always have. Remember when Dad left? You were fine for months, then suddenly redecorated your entire room at the 6-month mark." I paused, the memory suddenly vivid. I'd been 17, and yes, I'd spontaneously painted my bedroom black and silver one weekend, 6 months after our father walked out. "This is different," I said, accepting the glass she handed me. "I've been processing it all along." "The therapy helps." Olivia nodded approvingly. The weekly sessions with Dr. Chen had been her suggestion. "Still, humor me. How are you really feeling about everything? The whole Mark saga?" I leaned against the counter, considering the question. "Honestly, I feel complete. Like the story has reached its natural conclusion. He made his choices. I made mine. Justice happened. Life goes on. No residual anger. No moments of wanting to drive to the federal prison and scream at him through the visitor's window." I smiled. "Not really. Don't get me wrong. I was furious. Devastated. But now," I shrugged. "It feels distant, like it happened to someone else." Olivia studied me over her wine glass. "And the trust issues? Dating? Any progress there?" I groaned. "Please tell me you didn't come here to set me up with someone." "No matchmaking, I promise. Though Jason from my office still asks about you at least once a week." I rolled my eyes. Jason with the cryptocurrency obsession and the weird laugh? Hard pass. We carried our food to the living room, settling on the couch with the city lights twinkling through the windows. For a while, we ate in comfortable silence. "I am dating, you know," I said finally. "Sort of." Olivia nearly choked on her pad thai. What? Since when? With whom? Why am I just hearing about this now? I laughed at her reaction. It's very new. His name is Michael. He's a forensic accountant who worked on the Winter Ridge case with the FBI. We've had coffee 3 times and dinner once. And details? Rebecca? I need details. And it's nice, slow. He knows everything about what happened with Mark, so there's no awkward reveal to navigate. He's smart, thoughtful, not particularly handsome in a conventional way, but he has kind eyes. Kind eyes, Olivia repeated with a grin. That's promising. It's also terrifying, I admitted. I second-guess everything. Does he really need to work late? Or is he meeting someone else? Is that text really from his brother? Or is he hiding something? I hate that Mark did that to me, made me question basic trust. Olivia set down her plate. That's normal, Beck. It would be weird if you weren't a little gun-shy after everything. The important thing is you're trying. You're not letting Mark steal your future, too. I nodded, grateful as always for her perspective. Enough about me. How's the new campaign going? We spent the rest of the evening talking about her work, our mother's recent retirement, plans for the summer, normal sister things that had nothing to do with fraud or betrayal or rebuilding a life from scratch. After she left, I stood by the window looking out at the city. 6 months. Half a year since the world I thought I knew collapsed, and a new one began forming from the rubble. My phone buzzed with an email notification. I expected it to be work. It usually was at this hour, but instead, it was from an unfamiliar address. C. Winters 83 Secure Mail. Com. Cassandra. My heart raced as I opened it. Rebecca, you don't know me, though you know of me. I won't insult your intelligence with apologies or excuses. What Mark and I did was unforgivable. I'm writing because my sentencing is next week, 8 years as with a recommendation for medium security, and I wanted to clear the air before I disappear into the system. Mark never stopped loving you. Even as we built our relationship, your ghost was always there. He compared me to you constantly, usually unfavorably, too impulsive, too reckless, not as smart, not as principled. I hated you for years before I ever met you. The schemes were my idea initially. Mark was just supposed to be my inside source at Apex, but he proved to have a talent for it that surprised us both. He liked the rush, the sense of outsmarting everyone. I think, in some twisted way, he was trying to prove he was as clever as you. I'm not writing to defend him or myself, just to offer you this one truth. In the end, he chose to protect you rather than me. When everything was falling apart, he ensured you'd have the evidence to clear your name, even knowing it would make his own situation worse. It's a small thing against the mountain of hurt we caused. But I thought you should know. Cassandra. I read the email 3 times before closing it without replying. There was nothing to say. No response that wouldn't somehow extend a connection I had no interest in maintaining. But her words echoed in my mind as I got ready for bed. Mark never stopped loving you. He chose to protect you rather than me. Was that love? The man who had lied to me for years, stolen from me, planned to abandon me with a financial time bomb set to destroy my life? Had he, in some warped way, loved me throughout? And if he had, what did that say about love? I thought about Michael, with his kind eyes and careful approach. About how he always texted when he said he would. How he'd insisted on paying for background checks on all the new hires in my department, just to be thorough. How he asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Was I ready to trust again? To believe that someone could be exactly who they seemed? The answer came more easily than I expected. Not yet, but someday. And that was enough for now. The next morning, I woke to a text from David. Turn on the news. Winter Ridge Partners just filed for bankruptcy. The final domino falls. I switched on the television to see Cassandra's company logo behind a solemn news anchor discussing the complete collapse of the fraud-riddled developer. Assets seized, properties in receivership, investors filing class action lawsuits. I thought about the lavender note that had started it all. Thanks for the best trip, my love. Can't wait for our next adventure when you're finally free. Their next adventure would be separate prison terms in different federal facilities, their freedom measured in years, not days. I switched off the TV and opened my laptop to review the day's agenda. 3 client meetings, an interview with a potential new hire, and a strategy session for expanding the fraud division's services. My phone buzzed with another text. Michael this time. Coffee later? That new place on 17th? I smiled as I replied, sure, 4 p.m.? His response was immediate. Perfect. Looking forward to it. 6 months ago, I'd stood in my old bedroom sorting through Mark's coat pockets before dry cleaning, my world about to shatter with the discovery of a lavender-scented note. I'd made a split-second decision then, to sell our house that same day, that had set in motion everything that followed. Now, I sat in my new home, building a new career, contemplating a new relationship, with the wreckage of the past finally, truly, behind me. The letter had been the end of one story, but it had also been the beginning of another, one where I was the author, not a character in someone else's plot. I glanced at the deed to my loft, framed on the wall beside my law degree. Rebecca Miller, sole owner, no power of attorney required, no shared ownership, no hidden agenda. My phone buzzed with an alert from my banking app. The final divorce settlement transfer had posted. The last financial tie to Mark Andrews, severed permanently. I closed the app and opened my calendar, adding a reminder to book that trip to Greece I'd been postponing. Maybe in the fall, when the crowds thinned but the water was still warm. Maybe I'd invite Olivia to join me. Or maybe, if things progressed naturally, Michael. Or maybe I'd go alone, answering to no one but myself. 6 months ago, finding that letter had felt like the end of everything. Now I understood it had actually been a beginning. Painful, unwanted, but transformative. Mark had stolen years from me, but he'd inadvertently given me something too. The push I needed to reclaim my power, my agency, my future. I would never thank him for it. The price had been too high, the betrayal too profound. But I could acknowledge that sometimes endings create space for something new to grow. As I gathered my things for the office, my phone rang, an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Rebecca Miller. Ms. Miller, this is Warden Phillips. I apologize for the unexpected call, but Mark Andrews has been transferred to our facility, and he's requested to add you to his visitor list. I wanted to check if that's something you'd be comfortable with before proceeding. I paused, considering. 6 months ago, I might have felt obligated to say yes. 3 months ago, I might have said no out of anger. Today, I simply felt nothing. No pull to see him, no rage that needed expression, just the clarity of distance. No, I said firmly. I don't wish to be on his visitor list. Our connection is completely severed, legally and personally. Please don't contact me about him again. Understood, Mrs. Miller. I apologize for the disturbance. I hung up and slipped my phone into my bag, feeling lighter than I had in months. Some chapters deserve to stay closed. Some letters need no response. And some houses, the ones built on lies, are better sold on the same afternoon the truth finally comes to light.